In the heart of Electropolis, a city blazing with technicolor skyscrapers and superheroes, a beacon of humor emerges. Among the myriad of heroes strutting their stuff, one man sparkles with a unique charm. This is the tale of Captain Quip, the hero who tickles your funny bone while saving the day. Our story begins with a man named Maxwell Turner, or Max for short. Max was a stand-up comedian who, let's be honest, was having a tough time getting his audience to crack a smile. His jokes were met with silence, his dreams of comedic stardom seemed out of reach. But all was not lost, for Max had a secret weapon, a superpower waiting to be unleashed. One night, under the dim lights of a comedy club, trouble came knocking. A gang of villains decided to make the club their personal piggy bank, but they hadn't accounted for Max and his hidden talent. In a burst of inspiration, Max imagined a gigantic inflatable chicken squawking and clucking its way through the room. The sight was so absurd, so unexpected, that it left the villains dazed and confused, allowing the patrons to apprehend them. This display of comedic genius didn't go unnoticed. Voltage Vixen, a renowned superhero of Electropolis, was impressed. "You've got a knack for this, Max," she said, her eyes glinting with a challenge. "How about joining the Superhero League?" Max was taken aback, but the prospect of spreading laughter while fighting crime was too enticing to resist. And so, Captain Quip was born. A hero armed not with brute strength or laser vision, but with a quick wit and the power to conjure up anything his imagination could dream of. And that's how an unlikely hero was born, armed with a quick wit and the power to conjure up any gadget he could imagine. From that day forward, Electropolis had a new champion, a beacon of humor lighting up its technicolor skyline. Captain Quip was here, and he was ready to save the day, one laugh at a time. Captain Quip was not your ordinary superhero. His gadgets were as unique and funny as his jokes. Captain Quip was an artist of whimsy, crafting crime-fighting tools that would make even the sternest villain chuckle. He could pull a giant rubber duck out of thin air to use as a shield or create a banana peel trap to slip up the bad guys. And when the situation called for a grand distraction, his confetti cannons would erupt, leaving everyone in a state of colorful chaos. But Captain Quip wasn't out there alone. Side by side with him was Voltage Vixen, a superheroine whose electric powers were as electrifying as her personality. Their partnership was a sight to behold. It was like watching a stand-up comedy routine with a side of electrifying stunts. Their first meeting, however, was far from a laughing matter. Imagine the scene. A comedy club under siege, a room full of terrified patrons, and a stand-up comedian who suddenly finds himself the center of attention, not for his jokes, but for his unexpected superpower. Yet from that chaotic encounter, a dynamic duo was born. Together, they tackled crime in Electropolis with a style all their own. Remember the tale of Professor Squeakums, that hyper-intelligent hamster with a doomsday device? Captain Quip's solution was pure comedic genius. An oversized hamster wheel of all things. It was so irresistible that Professor Squeakums abandoned his wicked plot to give it a spin, giving Voltage Vixen the perfect opportunity to disarm the device. Their teamwork was anything but conventional. It was a mashup of laughter and lightning, of comedy and courage, and it worked. Time and time again, they proved that humor could be a powerful tool against the forces of evil. Captain Quip and Voltage Vixen, a duo unlike any other, brought a fresh wave of joy and jocularity to the city. Their shared mission of safeguarding Electropolis, coupled with their unique talents, made them a team to be reckoned with. Their unique blend of electricity and comedy made them an unstoppable force in Electropolis. Despite the laughter and the adventures, Max felt a pang of loneliness. Who was he when the mask came off? Beneath the high-spirited antics of Captain Quip, there was a man named Max, wrestling with his identity. Without his costume, without his gadgets, who was he? A comedian who had once struggled to make people laugh? Or a superhero who could conjure up a giggle with a mere thought? But there was one person who saw Max for who he truly was, beyond the jokes and the gags. That person was Emily. To the world, she was Voltage Vixen, but to Max, she was a friend, a confidant, a partner. Emily saw past Captain Quip's quick wit and comical gadgets to the man beneath. She saw Max, the dreamer, the one who wanted to bring joy to the world through laughter. She saw a man who was kind, compassionate, and full of life. And she saw a man who, despite his cheery demeanor, had his share of insecurities and fears. Their relationship deepened beyond crime fighting. They shared conversations that stretched into the late hours of the night, discussing their hopes, dreams, and fears. They spoke of their lives outside their superhero personas, of their struggles and triumphs. They opened up to each other, revealing parts of themselves they had hidden away from the world. Through these heartfelt conversations, Max found a sense of belonging. He found someone who understood his struggles, shared his dreams, and accepted him for who he was. Emily, with her warm smile and genuine nature, began to mend the cracks in Max's heart. As their friendship blossomed, Max found himself falling for Emily. Her laughter became his favorite sound, her happiness his highest priority. But while he was certain of his feelings, he was uncertain of hers. Could he muster the courage to reveal his true feelings to Emily, or would he hide behind his jokes, fearing the consequence of baring his heart? The more time they spent together, the more Max realized he was falling in love with Emily. But could he muster the courage to reveal his true feelings? He wondered, as he took off his mask, revealing the man behind the superhero. The man who was not just Captain Quip, but Max Turner. The man who was falling in love. In a world filled with laughter and adventure, there was one thing Max hadn't prepared for: love. Love, that elusive emotion, had crept up on him, as silent as a whisper and as potent as a superhero's punch. It was Emily, the woman behind Voltage Vixen's electrifying persona, who had sparked this unfamiliar feeling in his heart. Max, as Captain Quip, was a master of jests and jibes, always ready with a witty retort or a clever prank. But when it came to expressing his feelings for Emily, words eluded him. His tongue, so adept at creating laughter, seemed to falter in the face of this profound emotion. He found himself wrestling with a new kind of villain, one that couldn't be defeated with inflatable chickens or oversized rubber ducks. This enemy was fear, fear of rejection, fear of change, fear of losing the camaraderie he and Emily had shared. It lurked in the depths of his heart, casting a shadow over his newfound feelings. Every time he looked into Emily's eyes, he saw a world he longed to be a part of. A world that was not just about fighting crime or pulling pranks, but one filled with shared dreams and whispered secrets. A world where he could be Max and not just Captain Quip. But how could he tell Emily? How could he reveal this side of him that was so raw, so vulnerable? How could he risk altering the dynamic they had, the friendship they had built over countless missions and shared victories? The answer seemed as elusive as the emotion itself, but Max knew he couldn't hide his feelings forever. He had to tell Emily. He had to take that leap of faith. As the city lights twinkled in the background, Max took a deep breath, ready to reveal his feelings to Emily. But just as he was about to speak, an alarm blared in the distance. Duty called. Would Max ever muster the